There is a part of you you don't want to look at, a darker, hidden self, one that you push away, suppress, or pretend doesn't exist. But Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. What if I told you that the very things you try hardest to ignore, your fears, your anger, your envy, are the keys to understanding yourself completely? And that most people spend a lifetime running from them, only to live half a life. In this video, we're going to explore why most people live in denial of their shadow self, how it quietly shapes their choices, and what it takes to face it and finally become whole. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because these are not just insights. They're tools to change your inner world. And stay with me until the end. This journey is not comfortable, but it is absolutely necessary if you want to live a life of depth, power, and authenticity. The shadow is a concept developed by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. It refers to the unconscious parts of our personality that our conscious ego doesn't identify with. These parts are repressed because they conflict with our self-image. They're the traits we believe are unacceptable, bad, or weak. Think back to your childhood. Maybe you were told it was wrong to cry, so you repressed your sensitivity. Or maybe expressing anger brought punishment, so you buried it. Over time, these parts didn't disappear. They simply sank into your unconscious mind, forming what Jung called the shadow. The shadow isn't inherently evil. It contains both negative and positive traits that we've denied. Hidden within it could be your suppressed creativity, ambition, sensuality, or leadership. But as long as you deny these parts, they operate from the dark, influencing your life without your awareness. We don't come into this world hating parts of ourselves. We're taught to. Society rewards certain behaviors and punishes others. Families, schools, religions, and cultures all shape our idea of what is acceptable. If you were praised for being quiet and punished for speaking up, guess what gets repressed? If you were raised to be humble, ambition becomes shameful. If you grew up needing to be the good girl or the strong man, you may have suppressed vulnerability, anger, or even joy. Our ego, our conscious self, wants to be good, likable, successful. So anything that doesn't fit this image is pushed into the unconscious. But just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it's inactive. The shadow lurks behind emotional triggers, defense mechanisms, and compulsive habits. Ever notice how some people overreact to minor things? How someone gets disproportionately angry at a comment or deeply offended by a joke? That's often the shadow speaking. Let's say a man who sees himself as calm and rational is easily triggered by other people's anger. He hates angry people, not realizing he's projecting his own denied rage onto others. Or consider someone who constantly accuses others of being selfish. They might be denying their own selfish impulses, which, by the way, are human and necessary in moderation. Projection is one of the shadow's favorite tricks. It allows us to disown uncomfortable feelings by seeing them in others. The more repressed the trait, the more violently we react to it in someone else. Living in denial of your shadow isn't harmless. It exacts a heavy price. Emotionally, it leads to anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. You constantly feel like something is off or missing. Relationships suffer because unacknowledged parts leak out as passive aggression, blame, or emotional withdrawal. You can never truly be intimate with others if you're hiding from yourself. You live a life of performance, wearing a mask and suppressing your truth. And the scariest part? You keep repeating the same patterns, not realizing you're being driven by unconscious parts you refuse to acknowledge. Let me share the story of Anna. She was a high achiever, always polite and composed, but her relationships fell apart again and again. She blamed others, thinking they were too emotional or needy. In therapy, she discovered a deep well of repressed anger and resentment she never allowed herself to feel. Once she began facing her shadow, her relationships started healing. She was no longer reacting, she was responding. Here's the paradox. The very parts you reject often contain the most power. Your shadow holds your repressed vitality. That anger, it can fuel boundaries. That envy, It might be pointing you toward what you truly want. That fear? It might be guarding your deepest desires. Carl Jung said, "The gold is in the dark." It means that within the shadow lie the very things you need to become whole. When you embrace the parts you've denied, you gain access to new energy, creativity, confidence, and inner peace. Imagine someone who grew up being told they were too much, loud, intense, so they shrank. But within that denied intensity is their leadership, their charisma, their passion. Reclaiming it transforms not just their life, but everyone around them. So how do we start doing shadow work? Practice radical self-honesty. Notice what traits in others trigger you. Ask, is this something I deny in myself? Keep a shadow journal. Write about moments of strong emotional reaction. What were you trying to prove? What were you afraid others would see? Watch your projections. When you're quick to judge someone, pause. What part of you are they reflecting? Sit with discomfort. Shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about feeling what you've avoided. Consider therapy. A skilled therapist can guide you through the deeper layers of unconscious belief and emotional wounds. Shadow work is not a weekend project. It's a lifelong practice of becoming real. Let's talk about David. He spent decades chasing success, driven by a need to prove himself. He looked confident, but inside, he was insecure. After a divorce, he started doing inner work. He realized he had buried his shame, fear, and need for approval. Through shadow work, he began to accept these parts. The result? He became more grounded, less reactive, more compassionate. He built authentic relationships and reconnected with his passions. David didn't become someone else. He became himself, fully. This is the promise of shadow work. Not perfection, but wholeness. Not control, but freedom. You don't have to keep running. You don't have to keep pretending. Carl Jung taught us that confronting the shadow is not a luxury. It is a necessity. If you want to live a meaningful, empowered life, you must meet the parts of yourself you've locked away. The shadow is not your enemy. It's the wounded child, the silenced artist, the suppressed warrior. And when you bring it into the light, you become powerful in a way that's quiet, steady, and real. If this message resonates with you, share this video with someone who needs it. Leave a comment. What part of yourself are you ready to meet? And remember, you are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. Subscribe for more content like this. The journey to self-discovery starts within. Stay brave, stay aware, stay human.